Hello and welcome to another Meet the Adopter webcast, an opportunity to talk to the real experts, the people who've chosen to adopt a child or children into their family. The theme tonight is being an adoptive mom, and as ever, we'd love to hear from you, whatever your adoption story. If you'd like to take part in tonight's discussion, you can do so in two ways. You can email. The address is socialmedia@firstforadoption.org.uk, or you can tweet @firstforadoption using the hashtag #MeetTheAdopter. But without further ado, let's meet tonight's adopters. Hello to Denise and hello to Janice. Nice to meet you both. And I should say, we said that the theme is being an adoptive mom, but that's something that both of you have done twice. You both adopted twice, and you both now have two teenage children, a boy and a girl. Can I start off by turning back the clock a little bit and talking about how you came to adopt, which I think for both of you was about 15 or 16 years ago now. Start with you, Denise. Why did you decide to adopt?
The usual, you meet someone, fall in love, get married, decided it was time to have children. And for us, I'd say we tried for about a year and nothing happened. And then decided to get help, went along to our GP and tests were done. And then we were told the only way we could conceive is by having IVF. So went ahead and actually had 3 attempts of IVF. Very, very difficult time, I do remember. And I'd say after the 3rd attempt, I started sort of saying to my husband, really, I don't think I can go through this anymore. And I think that, we should adopt. We were then given a free attempt on the NHS of IVF, and so went ahead and had a 4th, and it didn't work. But by then, we'd started talking about adopting and mentioning it to family members. Some people were very like, oh, wow. Others were like, oh, my goodness, be careful. So I think for me, really, and actually, I wanted to be a parent, and I decided that, it didn't matter. I just, I knew that was something that one of my life's goals. And so.
And for you, Janice, does some of that feel familiar?
Very, very similar experience. I'd met my husband at college. We'd been together for 5 or 6 years, I think, before we decided we wanted children. But we always knew that we did. It was something that was just always something that we both wanted to do. And then we made the decision to start trying, and like Denise, nothing happened, and nothing happened, and nothing happened. And so we started the whole process of tests and going to the GP and lots of scans and all sorts of things. And they could never find a reason. That was sort of part of the frustration, really, that I kind of just wanted them to find something that was blocked or, something that could be fixed, and there wasn't anything. So we had unexplained infertility and started a course of IVF. We did it 3 times, by which time I was pretty fed up with the whole thing. It wasn't just emotionally draining, it was, financially draining. It was, every time you found out you weren't pregnant, it was absolutely awful. And then we decided one further attempt, so we had a 4th attempt. But I think already I'd started to think about adoption as being something that I'd be quite interested to do, and I think I had to sort of, my husband needed a little bit more persuading that was a good decision.
You mentioned a moment ago, Denise, about the reaction of family and friends. Had either of your lives been touched by adoption before you started to consider it as something you wanted to do with your husbands?
Yes. I mean, a little bit. I mean, I've got 2 adopted cousins. But it wasn't really talked about much. It was when we sort of thought about adopting, I realised that, I had 2 cousins that were also adopted. And my mother-in-law, when her 3 boys left to go to university, decided to foster. So she fostered a 12-year-old and then went on to adopt her. So my husband has an adopted sister.
Well done.
Yeah, for me, actually, I'm 2 adopted friends, and one I met at university, and one during my first job. And also, I mean, I was born in the UK, but grew up in the West Indies. My mother took in her, I mean, it was a very sad story, her gardener's 3 children. And I didn't formally adopt them because these kids were then made orphans. And they grew up as my sort of siblings. And, you know, so she just seamlessly went into that, as, you know, you can sometimes do. And so, you know, from that as well, that was an experience.
So for both of you, the idea of adoption wasn't completely alien?
It wasn't.
Yeah, it was something that was around. But I guess something that you didn't think necessarily was going to happen to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how was that, the making that shift? A lot of people, anybody who's been through IVF knows that it's physically, emotionally devastating experience it can be if you do it time after time. Did you feel that it was necessary to grieve, to have a period of calm before you started to throw yourself into adoption?
Yeah, I didn't feel that so much. I think I kind of like to find solutions to things. And for me, it felt that I knew that this is what I needed to do in order to have a family. So it felt like a very positive decision once my husband had got on board with it as well. You know, that it was the right thing to do. So I didn't feel that I needed a period to grieve. I felt I'd already grieved every time the IVF didn't work. That was, I felt, when I grieved.
Okay.
I mean, I'd say likewise. I didn't need a period to grieve, but I did grieve. I grieved the fact that I wouldn't be pregnant. I had sort of the romantic days of, being 9 months pregnant, everybody fussing over me. And so, that was something I had to let go of. And that was difficult. Yes, it was a big grief in that sense.
But do you feel that, with hindsight and in retrospect, do you feel that you waited the right amount of time before you started investigating adoption and beginning that process?
Yes, absolutely, it was.
Too, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that I was very ready when I picked up the phone and said I would like to find out about adoption. I was very ready to make that phone call.
And where was that? Because, of course, First for Adoption is only 2 years old, so we weren't around when you both made the decision to adopt. How much did you know? Where did you go? What did you do?
I think I called our local authority and was told that it was unlikely they would have any children. So I think somebody gave me some advice to try maybe sort of out of London a little bit. And so I contacted the authority where my mum lives and grew up. So, yes, so I really only made a couple of phone calls first time round.
Thank you. We've just had a question from Helen, who emails in to say, did you always know that you wanted to adopt more than one child? And did you, when you were investigating adoption, did you consider siblings? Maybe this one first to you, Denise. Did you always know that you wanted to adopt more than one child?
No. We went into it just knowing that we wanted to adopt. Hadn't thought any further than that. And for us, in finding an agency, it was just, we were a mixed race, dual heritage couple, and there were lots of flyers and newspaper articles, etc. Hence, I approached the first agency that we discovered. But no, so we hadn't considered adopting siblings. I mean, soon into the adoption process, siblings were offered to us, and that was something we considered.
And for you, Janice?
I don't think I'd really thought too much. I just knew I wanted a child, just in the same way that if you get pregnant, you don't know if you're going to have twins. So I didn't really think about that. Just knew I wanted a child. And so I think it was only because we adopted and we had a very, very, actually first time around, a very, very straightforward experience that was very, very positive, that a few years later we then thought, we'd like to do this again. So I think it wasn't that, the decision to have a second child came later, but we didn't really think about siblings, and we weren't offered siblings, you know, at all. So yeah.
Sorry, Janice. So you talked about your first child, who
Yes.
was your daughter.
Yes.
How did you find her, and did you have a moment when you thought, yes, this is the one, this is the child that I want?
I don't know how much it's changed now, but we knew nothing. We were matched. She was matched to us, and so the first time we knew anything about her was she was chosen by the agency, and we had a profile, I think, first, and then we had pictures, and then we had a video, and then we met her. So it was a sort of a drip by drip approach.
You're right, things have changed. And for you, Denise, what was the experience of finding your son? You adopted a boy
We
adopted
a boy, and I mean, once we were approved by the agency, then at the time, I don't know what you call them now, the Form E's started coming in, and our allocated social worker would then sort of, you know, kept suggesting, and then we would read through the different profiles, and I mean, it was difficult in the sense that at the time we were sort of presented with about 3 possible suitable children. And anyway, in terms of us, for us actually, we were offered, our son was 3 months old, actually. We were it was very unusual at the time. He was a child that was just given up for adoption immediately after birth. So our social worker at the time said, you know, actually this child, you know, you suit the criteria that the local authority were looking for, etc. And so we went, we were then sort of matched with him, and I mean, it was sort of amazing.
And how was the process for you both? A lot of people I know, understandably, are nervous of the process because they hear stories about how, by definition, it can be a very intrusive process being approved to adopt, because social workers, your agency, needs to know as much about your family, your history, your views, your bank balance, all that stuff. How was the process for you? Did you feel supported through that process?
I mean, the process certainly was very intrusive, I found. I mean, the questions, there was no stone unturned, really. At first, it took a bit of getting used to. And retrospectively, I'd say that all the questions prepared us for being adoptive parents, really. I mean, at the time, I couldn't remember some of the sort of most outrageous questions. For example, you know, they wanted to know things about, say, you know, your sex lives, and we were just like, my God, why, you know? But, I suppose they're delving into the fact is, you know, what sort of relationship did you have, etc. But it was very intrusive, and took a bit of getting used to.
Did you feel that too, Janice?
Yeah, same thing actually. I think you know, I found it quite straightforward really, and I didn't mind, and I would jump through any hoops that needed to be jumped through because I so desperately wanted a child. So, but I like Denise. I think the questions about your sex life, you think, really, really, you need to know that. But you know, generally it was fine, and I didn't find it that difficult. I think they were, you know, the agency were very nice. The social worker we were dealing with was very helpful and very supportive. So I didn't find it difficult.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And it's important to say that for people who are fortunate enough to be adopting today, as opposed to 16 years ago, the process is a lot less mysterious, and you could do a lot worse than visiting the First for Adoption website, www.firstforadoption.org.uk, where there is lots and lots of information about how to adopt, how to begin to adopt, what will be required of you throughout the adoption approvals process. You didn't have that luxury, but it sounds like it worked out okay in the end, and you did feel supported.
Yes.
Can you talk about how you first met your first children? What was that? What did that feel like? Your son, when you met your son and your daughter for the first time.
Wow, incredible. So we knew we had to travel to meet him, and stayed in a hotel overnight. I mean, it was just, so exciting and nervous. We were so nervous as well. And I went to the foster family's house, and I remember, setting eyes on this lovely, child, and I fell in love immediately.
Did you?
Absolutely. In actual fact, with both of my children, and it was so difficult because the way the process worked at the time, I don't know now, you meet the child and then you go away, and it was so difficult to leave him. But, we went back the next day and we sort of visited him for about a week with the foster family. No, it was amazing, absolutely.
What about for you, Janice?
Yeah, well, the most bizarre thing was that my daughter was in foster care 3 doors away from my mum's house. And so we couldn't believe when they told us the address. We just couldn't believe it. It was 3 doors away from where I grew up. And and my mum said, yes, I do remember there's a lady up the road that's got lots and lots of kids that come in and out. But so we met my daughter, and just like Denise, I completely fell in love with her the first time I saw her. And I think from the photograph, the thing that really struck me when we first got the photograph of her, because we hadn't met her, hadn't seen her, and we were told, this is your child, she had red hair, and that was the thing. I think when we both saw the photograph, we just thought, oh, really? They've matched us, and she's got red hair. That's so different from... so that was, I think seeing the photograph was quite strange, actually, because she didn't look how I was expecting her to look. But then when I met her, it was just immediate. She was just very, very smiley and receptive to us, both of us, and it was very, very positive, really, from the off.
And had you worried, both of you, prior to meeting? I mean, I know some people, as they make the decision to adopt, one of the things that nags away in the back of their mind is, what if I don't bond with this child? What if I don't love this child? Were you concerned before you?
I was actually, yes. And I must admit, there was a sort of session in the sort of adoption training that, we dealt with that sort of anxiety and and then preparing you for bonding with the child, etc. But I do remember, I don't think I slept for, well, 2 or 3 nights before, because I was very, very, it is, you think, oh my goodness, if I see this child and, I don't want, fall in love with it, or, it is normal. I think you would worry, anybody would worry, but you're given the information as well. So I think the bonding process obviously starts before you've met the child as well. So, and at the time, my agency was prepared us very well for that sort of, stage. So I think I should hope that today they do prepare you very well for that.
I think they do. We've got another email here from Claire. And I suppose this fits in with around just what you were both saying when you were preparing yourself to adopt and when you found yourself with this little person, both of you, in your home. How important do you think it is, Claire says, to speak to other adopters? Did you find that did you seek them out? When you both knew people, didn't you?
I did, but funny enough, they weren't the people I sought out. I think certainly with my daughter, we just sort of slotted into sort of mother and toddler groups and things and did things and didn't actually actively seek out other adopters. But we did go to some of the yearly sort of parties that the agency held. We went to a few of those things, and it was nice to talk to other adopters. But I think we didn't sort of actively seek out other adopters. It didn't feel necessary, actually, at the time. Although it was obviously very nice when we did meet other people that adopted, because there's sort of a commonality. But I think we just sort of treated her like she was our child, and it was just we just got on with it, I think. But sort of further down the line, it's been very, very, very important
I know
to
you
know
both.
other
I
adopters.
know as we're talking 15, 16 years ago, as your children have grown older and your families have grown, I know both of you have actively
absolutely
sought out other adopters.
I mean, for us, actually, our adoption agency insisted that we met few adopted families before we actually went ahead. And at the time, this is before actually receiving our first child, and we went ahead. And I must admit, it was so useful, so helpful, and we continued to be friends with some of those families. And then later on, I did seek out adoption, sort of, UK adoption groups, etc., and found them very useful.
Now, the guidance today in 2015 about adopting a second child, the experts say, I'm not talking about these experts, but those experts out there with all the qualifications and the professional experience, would say that it's important to leave a gap of at least 2 years between your first child being in the home and adopting a second child, for all the sensible reasons that you would expect, to allow that first child to adjust and to feel comfortable and secure and attached to you and your family. Did you leave a similar gap, or a longer or shorter gap before you? Because it wasn't quite as, I don't think it was quite as defined then. I think you might have possibly been able to adopt sooner had you wanted to in those days.
We left, 2.5 years between. And in actual fact, after 2 years, we considered adopting again and contacted the agency, and they sort of, advised us really to sort of leave it a little bit longer.
Okay.
And then once we started the process, so in actual fact, it was probably 3 years before we got our second child.
What about for you, Janice?
Yeah, actually, it was a bit. I was just trying to work it out there. It's a little bit longer, but it was probably nearly 4 years till we had our son. Yes, about 4 years, and I seem to remember maybe after about 2.5 or 3 years, we started to contact the agency to try and go through the process to have a second child. Yeah.
And when you adopted first time around, had you both had strong opinions about whether you wanted to adopt a boy or a girl in each case? No. And what about the second time? Did you want a brother or sister, or vice versa, for your older child?
I had a slight preference for sort of thinking that I'd quite like a boy because I had a girl. But I wouldn't have minded, actually. But only just very vaguely, it might be quite nice to have a boy this time.
So just like being a birth parent, really?
Yeah, nothing really that sort of set in stone.
Likewise, exactly the same, really, it was, yes.
And can I talk about, let's fast forward a little bit beyond the stage when both your children were babies. One of the things I know that is scary for anybody who hasn't been through adoption in their family is the idea of the birth family, the idea of contact for the birth with and to the birth family. What's been your experience of contact, and indeed beginning and continuing to work with your children on life story work, as it's officially called, the idea of explaining to your children where they came from and their history and heritage and so on?
Well, I've got two quite different experiences. My daughter, there was no direct contact with her birth family. I think there was issues around them trying to kidnap her. They didn't work with social services. It was all very difficult. So there was no direct contact. The grandmother and a half-brother wrote to her every year. And, I'd share the letter and I'd write back. So it was very minimal. And then they just stopped writing after a few years. But it had kind of got to the point where I was reading her this letter and she didn't know who they were and it didn't mean very much to her. And she's very different to my son. She doesn't really ask. And every now and then I sort of think, has she forgotten she's adopted? She doesn't really talk about it at all. And sort of I think she was she was little when she came to us. And she knows everything. We've been very, very open and honest with her. And she doesn't really ask that many questions. She may do at some point, and we'll always answer them if she does. And but my son has been very different. He's always had a million questions. He was older when he came to us. We had direct contact with the paternal grandmother, actually twice a year, and she was a lovely lady. I enjoyed meeting her. She cared very much for him. And then after a few years, he said, I don't really want to see her anymore, just out of the blue. And actually, I felt quite sorry for her, really, because I knew she used to love seeing him. But he just decided one day, that's it, I don't want to see her. And I did try to, it was the other way around. I was trying to persuade him that, to see her, and he really didn't want to. So it's naturally sort of dried up. But I write to his birth mother every year. And I think that's a positive thing. She writes back. I share it with Justin.
And what about for you, Denise?
So in terms of the life story books, I mean, both of my children, their life story books were just, so dominant in our household. And they were just there and, for us to go through. And they have and know as much information as we were given about their birth family. There was no direct contact. There was supposed to be sibling contact, and my son has got two siblings, and we were supposed to have contact, but their family, it all broke down really, and very sadly. And we left it, hopefully now the kids are probably in their late teens, they're probably getting contact with each other, but there was no contact. In terms of my other child, funny enough, she found some information and made contact with her sibling herself. I mean, but very positively, they're very close. I spoke to the mother, etc. And this was fine because the contact was allowed. It was set up by the court, so But it just, at the time when they adopted their child, they didn't feel as if they wanted to keep in contact with any of the family. In terms of both children, I met their birth mothers. We were given the opportunity to meet the birth mothers, and that was amazing. And I think for my children, that was one of the best things I could have done, because the information that I was able to pass on to them just sort of made that figure real for them in that sense. So but life storybooks, I'd say, are just
So would you say to anybody, what would you say to people maybe in the earlier stages of having an adopted child in their family? What would you say to them about what you've learned about contact and about birth family and about those issues, those really important issues of identity?
Because I do remember in starting out, in the adoptive courses, etc., we were very nervous about contact and, probably felt a tiny bit insecure in terms of that. But I would say to anybody, really, it is the child's heritage. They, and it can only make your bond with your child stronger if you can give them that, and as they get older, the questions get, more and more difficult. The more information you have, the more comfortable the child is with its identity.
It's interesting. We've just had, actually, Denise, on that point, an email from Laura, which says, for both of you, I think, if you wouldn't mind answering this, how did you first tell your children that they were adopted? And at what age? How did you decide when was the right time to do that?
We were prepared, and we were we were given a lot of sort of advice in terms of the life story books for the children, and told, to start discussing it with them, to make it something normal, as early as they can sort of understand, which we did, actually. So I would say, in terms of there were different pages of the life story book you can replace. So first of all, there were the little diagrams. You explain the situation, that I'm your forever mummy, and you also have a sort of a birth mummy, and it just became natural, really. And as they progressed, my daughter was given an incredible later life letter by her social worker.
Can you explain what that is for people?
Now, that was a letter that the social worker at the time wrote to my daughter, as an older child, saying, when you get to this age, you'll be reading this and understand it. And at 11, that letter became such a sense of, comfort and identity for my daughter, And we could sit down and go through it. So that was very, very important.
And for you, Janice, when did you, or was it like Denise, was it an ongoing process that just unfolded?
Yeah,
you can't really remember a beginning to it.
Yeah, I think it's all sort of age-appropriate stuff, isn't it? You start the dialogue when they're very little about being adopted, and just answer any questions that they have, and it just make it very normal. And we did, I'm saying we didn't seek out so much other adopted parents, but Andrea, my husband's sister, was in our lives, and so my daughter knew her really well. So there were other adopted people around, so that was very nice for her. So it was always treated as something very natural and very, as normal as we could possibly make it.
And how have those conversations, you're now the mums of 2 teenagers, so presumably the conversations of, you've already shared with us, Janice, that it's very different. With your son and your daughter, they're very different attitudes towards being adopted. But have the conversations become more complex? Have they become more challenging for you as parents, or?
Well, my daughter's main concern, really, I have to say, is what her hair's like at the moment, rather than anything else. And her homework hair, and her friends, and actually, we don't, for whatever reason, have that many conversations about it. She doesn't ask very much, and it's not getting more complicated. She seems to be, I keep the dialogue open so that she can ask me questions, but she isn't asking me questions, and she hasn't ever really asked me that many questions. And that could be her personality, it could be that she's kind of, I don't know, she doesn't ask very much. My son is very different. He wants to know everything. And I don't know, it's very difficult to sort of explain that one.
Funny enough, for me, it's the opposite, actually. So my daughter, from the age of 2, things, questions. She's always be a child who would question things. And she got older and into sort of, puberty, everything, in terms of my inability to have children and what her, birth mother might have gone through, etc. And she needs to know everything, and she discussed everything. My son, on the other hand, he knows everything, and you can tell it means a lot to him, and he takes it, but he doesn't discuss it. And it's absolutely, it's the opposite. So I think it depends on the child. It depends on the child, really. It's just,
It's important to stress, isn't it? Every child is an individual, every family is its own special place, and all parents are different, and all our experiences, there'll be similarities, but they're all going to be different, aren't they? In terms of having adopted children publicly, how has the experience been for you as a family? I'm thinking maybe in the early days when you suddenly appeared in the neighbourhood with a baby where previously there hadn't been one, and then later down the line at school, and your children's experiences of being an adopted person, maybe one of the few or the only adopted person in their classes.
For me, in terms of sort of school age, and it's funny, people never seem to notice much, really, our children would arrive and I don't think anybody really noticed because they're busy. But one thing I'd say, in terms of questions, at school, I decided who I was going to tell if I wanted to share. I mean, it wasn't something I'd just say, oh, you know, my children are adopted, if it did come up. My daughter, on the other hand, oh, my goodness, you know, her classmates, and I let her decide. So, you know, then you know, with time she would arrange to take her life storybook into school, and then, you know, she told the entire school, and she loved it. You know, which my son, nobody knew, and he didn't want to discuss it. So, yeah, so not, you know.
So this has got a lot to do with our children's personalities, hasn't it? Because exactly the same thing. My son would take his life history book and show it to absolutely everyone because it's a fantastic way to get everyone to go, really? And lots of attention. And my daughter's just generally more private and probably wouldn't have shared anything really with anyone, maybe her best friend. So very different things. But you see, we had a daughter that had bright red hair, and so the issue would come up all the time. It was so obvious that my husband and I both have blue eyes and dark hair, and she's got brown eyes and red hair, that she very obviously didn't look like our child, or, you know, our biological child. So the question would quite often come up, where does she get her red hair from? That would be said by everyone. So I just came up with she gets it from her grandparents, which was completely true, and I didn't have to explain to strangers on the street, you know, I didn't have to say she's adopted, unless it was somebody that I was going to be seeing a lot of times, and then I'd say she's adopted. But I didn't want to have to tell everybody that. And so to just come up with a line that it comes from her grandparents kind of just deflected it away.
Thank you. We've just got time for a couple more questions. Time's whizzing away with us. But I wanted to ask you, what has been... All right, a two-part question. What has been the best bit of being an adoptive mum? Well, let's start with that one. What has been, and it's a difficult one, isn't it? I'm sure there are many good things, but what has been the best bit?
Having a happy family that just like any other happy family, enjoying lots of fun times and laughs and tears and just like any other family.
That makes sense.
I mean, you know, for me, having, you know, two fantastic children. Recently, my teenage daughter, her head teacher came, you know, said to me, "Oh gosh," she said, "you know, Kaya and I were discussing things, you know," and she said to me, "My mom's my rock, and you know, she never gives up on anything." And for me, you know, that's amazing. That's, you know. But yeah, having a lot wonderful family.
I should have done this the other way round, shouldn't I? And ended on that lovely positive note. Okay, I'll ask the other part of the question now. And what has been the most challenging aspect? You're only allowed to pick one or two things. I asked this to the parents of teenagers, so I'm aware of...
It's difficult. Now, challenging, is it, am I a worrier? I worry, and sometimes I do worry if I worry more than I should. It is the worry, and I suppose it's something you'd worry, every parent would worry. Mm-hmm. I think for me, I was probably slightly more overprotective. I don't know. You know, and I do worry more for my children than I need to, because they're, you know, they're fine.
And for you, Janice?
For me, has been how incredibly difficult navigating the education system has been for my son. Absolutely, and that was a challenge that I put up there as being even harder than doing IVF. Actually, you know, the lack of understanding and help that he's had, and that has completely and utterly shocked me.
And you have made, you don't mind me mentioning that you've made the decision after a lot of thought and several schools to educate your son at home, and you've been doing that for a year now.
Yes.
And how is he?
Well, interestingly, now I've removed school, he's a much happier child, and it shocked me how much of distress being in a school environment had caused him. Yeah, he's in a very good place right now. But school was an unmitigated disaster, and I think that's quite hard, and not an uncommon experience that adopters face, and one that really I wasn't aware of until we started to have one school breakdown after another. And that's, takes its toll on the family. So without a shadow of a doubt, that's been the hardest thing.
You would say to people considering adopting, and it doesn't by any means, it's important to redress the balance, it doesn't by any means happen to all adopted children. Some schools are fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
I know your experience has been a little easier in that regard, hasn't it? With school.
I mean, I suppose, well, as I suppose with any child, one child's sailed through school, one, is dyslexic, so needs more support. So I suppose, if you have got problems, which I suppose the children can have in terms of, early life experiences that might lead on to... I think you can have challenges in that sense, as you've, said.
And it's important to say that option is out there for people who feel empowered as you did eventually to homeschool your child.
Yeah, I mean it's something I never ever would have thought I would have wanted to do, and it wasn't really a choice, really. But it certainly works very, very well
For him.
It probably wouldn't have worked for my daughter, actually. I can't quite imagine, but she loves school and she does very well at school. So it's not something I would have ever considered. But I would say to any adoptive parent that's really struggling with their child and got a very unhappy child at school, it's an alternative that most people don't even think is out there. And and also it's a huge community. Certainly in London there are thousands of people that home educate their children that you just don't know about. So it's not like I'm sitting on my own with him in a room. He's probably out in every day of the week in various groups doing lots of interesting things. So he's got more friends now than he ever had when he was at school. So
That's
it's
good to
very
hear.
positive.
And the good news around that, of course, is that there's a lot of work currently going on in schools and with schools about adopted children. And as I'm sure you know, from the 1st of April this year, the Adoption Support Fund kicks in throughout the country, and that allows parents of adopted children to access the kind of support that maybe you wished had been there at the beginning of your son's school career.
He had nothing.
Therapies, family therapy,
Yeah,
art therapy, play therapy, all those things.
Yeah,
Stuff that you've had to find for yourself happily is now available to anybody. I think the details are all on the First for Adoption website about the Adoption Support Fund. But people who have adopted since, certainly in the last 5 years or so, are eligible. And all the details are on the First for Adoption website. Okay, we're running out of time. One final email here I can see from Owen. What piece of advice would you give to people thinking about adopting now? All right, what piece of advice would you give to people, sorry Owen, what piece of advice would you give to people teetering on the edge of adopting, undecided? Should they do it?
Yeah. I mean,
I would say definitely. And if you're thinking about it, go along. I mean, I don't know, go along to sort of an evening where it's being discussed and asked questions. Use something like the First for Adoption website to sort of look up. And get your questions answered. But I mean, if you're thinking about it, go ahead, find out really as much information.
As you possibly can. As much information as you possibly can, and I think also when you first adopt, if there are challenges or things that you don't understand, get help. Tell people that it's hard, you need help. Don't be afraid to ask for therapy for your child. In fact, absolutely absolutely ask for therapy for your child.
That's great. So that's a yes, I think. Go for it.
Go
Yeah.
for it, definitely.
Well,
Yes.
thank you, Denise. Thank you, Janice, for sharing all that. We have run out of time. I should point out that on the subject of help, First for Adoption is here. You can call us any weekday between 10 and 6 on 0300 222 0022, 0300 222 0022, and you can visit the website, which is www.firstforadoption.org.uk. That's all from this Meet the Adopter webcast. Thanks again to you both. See you next time.